From the very first moment Ethan Hayes stepped into the softly lit restaurant, the last thing he expected was that tonight, what his co-workers had mischievously arranged as a blind date just to see something funny would become the night that would change not just his tired, single-dad heart, but the lives of everyone watching him. Because as he walked in carrying the quiet strength of a man who had raised his little daughter Lily alone, he noticed the girl sitting at the far-end table, her hands gently folded, her eyes drifting between the candles and the door, and there was a softness in her presence that instantly silenced his breath. She was young, nervous, dressed simply, with strands of hair tucked behind her ear, and when she finally looked up at him with those big, hopeful eyes, he realized she wasn't just waiting. She'd been preparing herself for something she wasn't sure she deserved. Ethan walked toward her, and she stood quickly, almost apologetically, and then touched her neck and made a hesitant hand gesture he didn't immediately understand until she pulled out a small notepad, flipped it toward him, and he read the trembling words, "Hi, I'm Anna. I'm deaf. I hope this is okay." In that moment, the world slowed, the restaurant noise faded, and Ethan's heart cracked open. Because his co-workers had set him up thinking he would panic, walk out or feel awkward. They expected cruelty or embarrassment or laughter, but instead his heart softened like warm clay in the hands of a potter, and he smiled gently at Anna, took the pen from her hand, and wrote on the same pad, "Hi Anna, I'm Ethan, and yes, this is more than okay." Her eyes shimmered with surprise, a quiet, emotional shift blooming across her face like sunrise over frost, because she wasn't used to people slowing down for her or meeting her halfway. Ethan pulled out a chair for her, the kind of gentlemanly gesture she rarely experienced, and then slowly sat down across from her, making sure she could see his lips clearly so she could read as he spoke gently, slowly, with care. He told her through slow lips that she didn't have to feel nervous, and that he wanted tonight to be comfortable for her. And she wrote back that most people grew impatient after 5 minutes, that conversations with her often felt like hard work to others. Ethan smiled and shook his head, scribbling back, "Talking to a good soul is never work. It's peace." That line alone made her breathe, out in a shaky whisper she couldn't hear, but he could see in her chest. A release of years of being treated as an inconvenience. And as they continued exchanging notes, soft smiles and shy glances, the waiters, the bystanders, and even a couple at the next table who initially smirked at the pair slowly began to fall silent, watching how Ethan made every gesture so intentional, how he waited for her to finish writing, how he never rushed, never corrected, never made her feel different. At one point Anna wrote, "Why are you being so kind? Most people don't try this hard." Ethan stared at that sentence, looked up at her, and pointed to her gently, saying slowly, "Because you deserve kindness, and because I know what it feels like to be underestimated." Her eyes widened, and he told her about Lily, his 7-year-old daughter who had struggled with speech delays when she was younger, and how people used to underestimate her too, and how he'd learned patience through fatherhood, not the forced kind, but the loving kind that stays even when tired. Anna placed her hand over her heart, touched by the way he said it, and Ethan, feeling brave, asked if she wanted to try something different. If he could write a sentence and she would speak it out loud, not perfectly, not clearly, just however she could, because he wanted her to feel confident around him. She hesitated, fear flickering across her features, but eventually nodded. Ethan wrote, "You make me feel peaceful," and handed her the notepad. Anna read it, swallowed, and tried speaking the words, her voice uneven, soft, but filled with tremendous courage. And Ethan looked at her like she had just done something extraordinary. Suddenly the same co-workers, who had been hiding near the bar to laugh at Ethan's awkward blind date, stopped their snickering. Their faces went pale, their guilt rising, because instead of a joke, they were watching a man treat a deaf woman with more honor and gentleness than they treated people with full abilities. Ethan caught them watching, walked over, and calmly, without anger, simply said, "If you set this up as a joke, then the joke is on you. Because she's the most genuine person I've met in years." His words hit them harder than yelling ever could. They lowered their eyes, ashamed. When he returned to Anna, she had written something new. "Do you still want to stay, even after you saw they were making fun of you?" Ethan looked at her with a softness that could melt stone and wrote, "I want to stay because you are worth staying for." She covered her mouth, tears forming, her shoulders shaking, overwhelmed by a kindness she had rarely known, and Ethan reached out slowly, giving her all the time in the world to let her place her hand in his. When she did, it felt like the restaurant lights warmed, like the world softened around them. They spent hours talking through notes, smiles, and gentle attempts at speech. Ethan even asked her to teach him a few basic signs. And every time he got them wrong, Anna would laugh silently, a pure, bright expression that filled him with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. And when the night ended, Ethan walked her to the car, and she hesitated before writing one final question. "Do you think we could see each other again?" Ethan didn't write back this time. Instead, he signed, slowly, imperfectly, but bravely, "Yes." Anna froze, then burst into tears, the safest tears she had cried in years. Because this time they weren't from hurt, but from hope. The same co-workers who had mocked earlier stood by the sidewalk, silently crying, humbled completely by the grace, the tenderness, and the humanity Ethan displayed. And as Anna drove away, Ethan whispered softly, "Thank you for tonight," knowing deep inside that this blind date joke had just become the most meaningful connection of his life. And when he returned home, Lily was waiting by the door. And when she asked, "Daddy, did you meet someone nice?" Ethan picked her up, kissed her forehead, and said with a full, peaceful heart, "Yes, sweetheart. Someone very, very nice." And with that, the story of a single dad and a brave deaf girl began, not as a joke, but as the beginning of something gentle, powerful, beautiful, and completely real. A story that ended not in heartbreak, but in hope, kindness, and a quiet promise that both of them finally felt worthy of.